do and die, we are not alike. No, you don't shine when they hit the lights. I don't make myself bleed for this life in these kind of nights. You just okay, but I'm kind of nice.
Throws a man down. It's called out. Dives and he catches it. Guns it long for the end zone. Touchdown.
Red Rifle, let's go. What's going on, everybody? Welcome into First Take. Thank you for being with us on this Wednesday. Harry Douglas, back for more of this good stuff from Max Kellerman. Good to see you, sir. Good morning, Max.
Good morning, Molly. Good morning, Harry.
Gentlemen.
Sharp as always.
Thank you.
Yeah, you do dress well. Guys, Andy Dalton is the starter for at least week one. Chicago's Bears coach Matt Nagy reaffirmed the team's decision to open the regular season with Dalton as the quarterback when he announced on Tuesday that Dalton will not play in Chicago's preseason finale at Tennessee because the veteran will be the team's week one starter. Instead, the Bears will start rookie first-round pick Justin Fields, who Nagy said should play 2 quarters on Saturday before giving way to third stringer, your guy, Max, Nick Foles.
For us, it's all about him just getting better. So we just want to see him play hard and play well. And the variables are different, right? He's not out there with, just like Andy hasn't been out there with some of those one receivers. So all I want to see from him is just play a good game of football at the quarterback position, and again, keep the big picture in mind for all of us.
Does that mean that his next opportunity, Justin's next opportunity, will be solely based on Andy's performance?
We'll see, but I would say, yeah, big picture, when we talk about this, from the very start, we said whoever's going to be best for the Chicago Bears, and that's going to obviously deal with productions and wins.
I think if, the players of a team don't buy into what a coach has to say, then that team's not going to be successful. So, I pretty much have no choice. That's ultimately why I'm trusting him, because, of course, we all want the same thing. We all want to win games. So there's no reason for me not to trust him.
Fields saying all the right things, but clearly he's disappointed. You can tell right there he wants to be the guy. Yeah, absolutely. Harry, what do you make of the Bears quarterback decision to go with Dalton?
I'll say, Molly and Max, I don't like it at all. I don't think it's the right decision. I think they're not doing what's best for the team to be successful and to win, right? And that's your job as a head coach. Being a head coach in this league, your job is to put the best 53 on your roster, start the best 11 on offense, the best 11 on defense, the best 11 on special teams. When you look at Justin Fields, that's clearly the best player. You look at him, Molly, he's electrifying, right? Mm-hmm. He just has that aura. He has that it factor about himself, and that's what you want from your quarterback. Now, when we talk about being electrifying, we're talking about improvising, right? You look at the quarterbacks in the league today. You have Patrick Mahomes, does a great job. You have Aaron Rodgers. And I'll tell you this, Max, I'll take it a little deeper. I've watched a lot of film on the Green Bay Packers, the Kansas City Chiefs, the Pittsburgh Steelers when they had Antonio Brown, Mike Wallace, Manuel Sanders, and then back when Aaron Rodgers had Jordy Nelson, Randall Cobb, right? Improv. Those guys got so many explosive plays off of their quarterbacks.
Off platform.
You know what I mean? Breaking the pocket, extending the play. When the play is called, it's broke down. Those guys doing those type of things. That's what I think about when I think about Justin Fields. I'm not saying Justin Fields is Patrick Mahomes. I'm not saying he's Aaron Rodgers or Big Ben. I'm just saying he gives them the best chance to be successful.
He might be a souped-up Dak Prescott, though, and that's pretty good, Larry David would say. Look, I don't disagree with anything you just said. I think you're right. And this is why Nagy deserves credit. This is why the Chicago Bears the coaching staff deserves credit right now. Let me explain. Do what's best for the team, right? Nope, not always. Sometimes you have to do what's best for the franchise. They're doing what's best for the franchise at peril of losing his own job, right? Like, we could talk about the playoffs in a little while, but I think we all agree Justin Fields better than Andy Dalton. I'll bet you if you ask Allen Robinson or someone like that, like, who do you want throwing the ball? Yeah, the kid, the electrifying guy, not the veteran who didn't quite make it as a great quarterback and he's serviceable now. No doubt. But what's best for the franchise, especially this one, if they keep saying one of the most iconic franchises in the history of worldwide sports? The Chicago Bears, I'm 48 years old, have never seen them with a great quarterback. Reason, pre-draft, Molly, as you remember, I was stumping for them to trade up to get Justin Fields, which they did, was because he has a chance to be a great NFL quarterback, the only one that they'd ever have in my lifetime. Now, what do you do with that guy? You rush him onto the field, even if you think he's ready, behind a bad offensive line, like he already got leveled in the preseason, which reminded me, like my first thing is don't have a Tua situation. You start him, you take it back, you start him, you sit him. Let it go. When you hand him the ball 15 years, you don't look back. But then the way he got leveled in the preseason, whether that was all on the O-line or not, reminded me, whoa, don't take chances with this guy. Let's use Andy Dalton as a tackling dummy and get Justin Fields even a little more experience. Let the line get it together a little more. Let's figure out how to protect, whether you're using running backs or whatever it is, and then put the kid in who's going to take us to the next level. The fact that they're doing this with their jobs on the line, they deserve praise for that. That they're putting the franchise ahead of the team, they deserve credit for that. A lot of guys don't do that.
Well, let me tell you why I have the problem with Matt Nagy and his decision, right? Beforehand, he named Andy Dalton as his starting quarterback, right? You seen how deflated Justin Fields was in that video, and he's not going to say that, and I hope he doesn't let it get the best of him because you got to just be prepared at all times. But when you have a guy coming in that you drafted in the first round, and then you just brought a guy in a free agency and who didn't have a good year last year, didn't have a good year in 2019, and you just named him the starter, this league is about competition. Being a former player, I want an opportunity to win the job, Max. I don't want you to just hand another guy the job.
You don't agree with the way he went about it as much as the actual decision?
I don't agree with both of it. I don't agree with the way
think of what he did with the Cowboys. You brought up a great point. Yeah. Andy Dalton last year had an opportunity.
He had an opportunity when Dak
got a little
Prescott.
better as the year went on, by the way.
Please,
but look,
let's be serious.
Look, I have to be honest about that. I thought Dak was a very good quarterback, and I thought Andy Dalton was a pretty good quarterback. And I did not expect the drop-off from the Cowboys that they got with Dak to Dalton. It highlighted both where Dak is and also where Andy Dalton is at this point in his career especially. There's no doubt. Andy Dalton is not if he's a starting quarterback, that means you have a problem at quarterback. I get it. The Bears do, and they also have a problem on the O-line. And they've had a problem getting a great quarterback forever. When they won with McMahon, he wasn't great. He was good. Jay Cutler was probably a top 3 quarterback for the Bears of my lifetime. It's almost half a century. They cannot get this wrong. Can't get it wrong. Well, got to make sure Justin Fields is right and that he's protected.
But Matt Nagy went about the whole situation the wrong way to start off. You don't just name Andy Dalton your quarterback without him proving to be the quarterback, right? Didn't we just hear Bill Belichick in his comments? Well, if we have a guy that's here, he's going to have to show me that he's better than the next guy. Well, Andy Dalton didn't show me he was better than anybody last year. He didn't do that in 2019. He threw 16 touchdowns and 14 interceptions in 2019. Right now, I think Justin Fields is the best product and gives the Chicago Bears the best chance to win.
This is a genuine question for someone who just played in the league. Yeah. Because not everyone on the roster knows it's tackle football. You might not play tomorrow. You're not promised the next play, right? Let alone 2 or 3 years from now. Is there any scenario where a coach could go to you and say, yeah, Justin Fields gives us the best chance this Sunday, but we're setting ourselves up for the long run, and he's going to get the ball soon, but not yet. We got to make sure we're right before he gets it. Would that fly with? Could you go to leaders in the locker room and even sell?
Hell no.
There's no way to sell.
Because leaders will go to you and tell you, "Hey, coach, I don't think you're putting the best product out there on the football field. We need the best guy."
Because now it's messing with the other players, and it's a win now. It's because Harry basically made it seem like Nagy made the decision regardless of how Fields played. That this is what it's going to be. He's going to sit behind him.
Here's the thing. I get it's different. When the Giants drafted Eli way back when, right? Or draft and trade. They started Kurt Warner for a minute partly because he gave them the best chance to win. He was an experienced quarterback, and partly because they wanted to get it together before they put Eli in. Now, times have changed. You expect quarterbacks to start earlier and all that. But I look at the blueprint for successful quarterbacks.
About Kurt Warner now. Let's be serious.
No doubt. and Andy Dalton is not Alex Smith. But Patrick Mahomes started, I think, 1 game his rookie year. And then was the best quarterback ever his second year. Aaron Rodgers waited. Aaron Rodgers.
Max, we got to get out of that mindset.
Mahomes
we got to get out of that mindset.
Yeah, but this was just a couple of years ago.
But Harry, he's right. Why was that okay for the Chiefs, and why is that not okay for the Bears?
Because you have Alex Smith, a guy who was successful in the league. Andy Dalton hasn't been successful like that in the NFL.
He's been to the playoffs.
He's been to the playoffs.
No, that's fair.
What has he done in the
That's
playoffs?
fair.
Alex Smith's career was a little better than Andy Dalton's career. It wasn't like a whole category better.
All right, well, let me ask you a question. If you got to pick two quarterbacks, Andy Dalton, Alex Smith, who you want as your quarterback on your team?
I would rather have Alex Smith.
Case closed, Max.
Yeah, but not by a country mile, by a little bit. Andy Dalton at his best was quite good. He was a good
He's
quarterback.
smarter with the football. He's efficient.
Yeah.
He's a dual threat.
Hold
I
on.
would
Yes
take
or no
Alex
answer.
Smith.
If Justin Fields was to play and start this season, would the Bears be in the playoffs? Yes or no?
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
Yes or no? Yes or
Yes.
no? Yes. Okay.
There are
Then
7
we're moving on.
teams.
They just
So,
made the
so
playoffs
that's
last
a
year.
reason. So that's a reason to start him. If
There
they
are
can.
7 teams coming from each conference. 3 are going to come from the NFC West. That means you got one open spot because the division winners are all going.
Yep.
Are the Bears definitely going to have the next best record? I don't know.
Listen, if you have a defense, you have a chance, Molly.
All right. Let's talk about the Cowboys next.
Got a defense now.
Okay, so Dak obviously coming back from the leg injury he suffered week 5 against the Giants, and he's dealt with a shoulder issue of late. Jerry Jones, what's his status? Talk to me.
I wouldn't be nervous this morning as to where he is in his recovery. He's there. I'd like for him to have this week of practice just to get ready to play Tampa, but of course we've got, 2.5 weeks or 2 weeks. But the bottom line is he's there.
All right, Harry, let me ask you this. So first it's the ankle injury, that gruesome ankle injury we all saw.
Yep.
And then now the shoulder, which seems to be a bit concerning. I know they're downplaying it. Do you think Dak leads the Cowboys to the NFC East title, which seems to be up for grabs every year?
I believe he does, with the simple fact that we've seen how much Dak Prescott meant to this team when he got hurt last year. And the guy that we were just talking about, Andy Dalton, couldn't even lead this team to get wins that they needed to win that division, in probably the worst division in football. But now you get Dak Prescott back. You get offensive linemen back. But here's the thing, though, Molly and Max. Dak Prescott doesn't have to do it all by himself. He has Ezekiel Elliott. He has his O-lineman coming back. He has arsenal when it comes to wide receivers. He has 2 solid tight ends. He doesn't have to do it all by himself. That's why I think the Dallas Cowboys offensively are going to be so balanced this year that they thrive and they win the NFC East.
I don't think they're going to win the NFC East. They might come in third in the NFC. There's a chance they can come in last in the NFC East. There's a chance. The NFC East is always like these teams are competitive with each other, and if you don't have a decided advantage, Dak Prescott is a decided advantage. They have the best offense. Let me just remind everybody of something, okay? Every year we head into the season saying, Dallas, this is the year. Their roster always looks star-studded to us. You know why? Because NFL players are really talented. You look at any roster, you'll find some talent. And if you have a very publicized roster, you'd be like, ooh, look at that guy. I recognize that name. I know that offensive lineman. And all of a sudden, it's like you've invested so much press coverage, emotion, and covering these guys. It feels like, you're not doing the math, how many good players they have, but it feels like, they got a stacked roster. It feels that way every year with the Dallas Cowboys. But what do they actually do? With a healthy offensive line, a healthy Ezekiel Elliott, and a healthy Dak Prescott, let's go back a couple of years. You know what they do? 8-8. 8-8. They couldn't even win the division, and that was with everybody a mess in the division. This is before Dak's injury. 8-8. Eagles won the division, and Carson Wentz stunk in the second half, and he was still enough to win the division. Now, what's happened since then? Have the Giants and the Washington franchise gotten better or worse? They've gotten better, let's just be honest. Even the Eagles without Wentz have gotten a little better.
I'm trying to hold my laugh in over
How
here.
about the Dallas defense? It was one of the worst defenses of all time last year. So you want to take a team that hasn't been above 500 for a hot minute. I'm talking seasons and seasons. Who every year we look at them, this is the year, whose defense was the worst ever last year, and you're going to say, for sure, even though we acknowledge Washington and New York has gotten better the last couple of years, they have. And you say, here we go, Dallas, you got the division again. Why? When was the last time they won it?
Let me ask you a
It
question.
alternates almost every year in the NFC.
Yeah.
Who do you think is going to win the NFC East?
Until I saw the Giants O-line this preseason, I was taking the Giants. I might switch to Washington based on what I've seen in the preseason.
Now, when Dak Prescott
but I don't think it's the Cowboys.
was the quarterback last year, Molly, I think they averaged over 32 points a game, slightly over 32
They did.
points.
It was 32.
So the Washington football team is going to score 30 points a game?
You think they're averaging 30-something on Washington?
Let me ask you a question, though. Are they going to is Washington offense made up to keep up with Dallas's?
No, but Dallas's defense. Look, Washington's defense is better than Dallas's offense.
100%. No.
Hold on. Of all the units in the NFL, you can make a very strong argument Washington has the best defense in the league.
They have a great front seven.
You can argue
they have a great front seven.
Who's the number one defense? Is it Denver? Is it Washington? Is it Pittsburgh?
They have a great front seven.
If you force me to choose, I'll take Washington. I will not take Cowboys as the number one offense in the league.
This is what I'm telling you. When you look at Dallas, you look at Dallas's defense. Dallas's defense doesn't have to be great, Max.
No.
They just have to be decent.
Mm-hmm.
I think their offense is so good to the point where Dallas's defense just have to be decent. If they're decent, they're going to win the NFC East.
And Parsons makes them decent.
If they feed Zeke like they should, and they keep that offense on the field.
Yeah, I like Parsons. I like Quinn better than what they had, but do you think those guys make him, as a coach, as a player?
I'll give it to you. I like the Washington football team front seven. Them boys, oof.
Bring it.
I don't know how you're going to block them.
They bring it, and the only reason I'm backing off the Giants a little, I got to see. I assume the O-line would get better. From what I've seen so far, it has not.
Well, you haven't seen the quarterback.
Right, we still haven't seen the quarterback.
That.
But let me tell you something. If the Giants O-line inches up, if the Giants O-line gets low average instead of terrible, I'll take the Giants. They're a better balanced team.
But what's the best way to negate a pass rush? You run right at them.
So Ezekiel,
you run right at him.
So the Giants aren't even in the conversation for you? It's between Washington and Dallas?
Molly, please don't make me throw up on first take set.
Throw up. I want to hear it.
No.
The Giants,
Why?
No.
The Giants are an 8-win team, a 9-win team, a 7-win team, something like that. In the NFC East, that might be enough. But the Cowboys, everyone's anointing the Cowboys. With a healthy Dak Prescott last year, they were sub 500. With a healthy Dak Prescott the year before in a full season, they were 500. In the worst division in the history of football, they were 500 and didn't go to the playoffs.
So you say Dallas might even be third. Who do you think is going to be second?
It's going to be Washington and New York and then Dallas.
Max, there's no way in hell you believe that.
Every year. By the way, you know what it was last year? Washington, New York, and then Dallas.
Didn't the Giants?
Yeah, but obviously Dak only played weeks 1 through 5.
Okay,
so
the year before.
We can't go by last year.
Fair enough. The year before it was Philadelphia, Dallas, and then
it literally alternates every year.
But Molly, didn't the Giants just have some offensive linemen retire?
Yes.
Oh my goodness! Come on, Max.
Look, I'm not. You got me on the O-line.
No faith.
They were already second in sacks allowed
like a heck
last
of a coach.
year. And then they had two guys.
You don't believe in Jason Garrett? Come on.
Yeah, Jason Garrett needs to stop running into loaded boxes and stuff. But look,
you see this face.
Look. The bottom line about the Giants is Daniel Jones was hurt last year. He was a solid mid-pack quarterback, even with the fumbles. Then he got hurt, and he was terrible. He's a quarterback that relies on his legs, right? He hurt his leg. He was terrible. No Saquon Barkley. They get them both back this year. That will make a difference. I'm not saying the Giants will be great, but they won 6 games last year. What did the Cowboys win? 6 games last year. Like, people are acting like the Cowboys are something special because they have an offense that appears to be potentially top 5.
Everything you're saying is factually correct, except we only had Dak Prescott for 5 weeks.
And they were under 500.
Yes.
And if you look at the last, so take those 5 weeks.
This might be the funniest thing I've heard in the 3 days I've been here.
Take the 5 weeks plus the 16 games the year before. That's a sample size of 21 games. They were under 500 in those 21 games. Barely, but they're about a 500 team.
All right.
So you have the Washington football team, the Giants, and then the Cowboys. That's how you have them finishing.
That's right.
We're going to have to revisit this.
Give me yours real quick. So you got the Cowboys,
Washington football team, and then the Giants.
No love for Philly. One quarterback battle has been settled, but a few still remain. Which yet to be determined starting quarterback race is the most tight? That is next. Plus, have teams really figured out how to stop Lamar Jackson? That's the report, according to sources. And wait until you hear Max Kellerman and Harry Douglas on that.
Hey yo, rapping just a rap with happened to that. Mainstream took a hold of my soul, but I made it back, bringing it back to the roots on some I dash that.
Quick take. takes. Okay, fellas, I need your counsel, or rather NFL coaches do. Let's discuss these quarterback battles. Max, what is your advice for Kyle Shanahan, who has tough decisions to make between Jimmy G and Trey Lance?
Well, I don't know how tough the decision is to make here. This is like the Alex Smith, Patrick Mahomes thing, except in this case, Alex Smith is super injury prone. Let's not forget, Jimmy Garoppolo, one pass away from winning the Super Bowl. You play until he gets hurt, and then you have Trey Lance.
He's had some injuries as well. Denver has a battle. Harry, what is your advice for Denver's Vic Fangio?
Well, Coach Fangio, it's not hard. It's very more simple than what you think it is. You see Drew Lock last year escaping the pocket too early, not getting through his reads the proper way, throwing interceptions. You bring Teddy Bridgewater here. So now, Teddy Bridgewater is there. He's in. Just all you got to do is let him thrive.
Bridgewater ain't going to mess it up.
No.
He might not win it for you, but he ain't going to mess it up.
Quick takes, Max. Cam is missing some time, giving Mac Jones some room to play. What is your advice for Mac Jones this week?
If you haven't already, get vaccinated, brother, because Cam left the door open for you. I think that Mac Jones doesn't need advice as far as I can see. He, Justin Fields, these guys are coming pro-ready nowadays.
All right, here's Bill Belichick on both Cam and Mac. Take a listen.
The fact he's not here, does it change your view of where things stand at that position?
Yeah, we'll evaluate everything the way we always do, based on the information we have.
Big opportunity for Mac Jones this week. I mean, everybody, it all figured it together.
He did give us something there. Is it a big opportunity for Mac Jones? It is, and that was definitive, Max Kellerman. So tell me this, what is the most significant quarterback battle? Because we've had some great ones this preseason.
This is the best one. But if you ask me what the most significant one is, I have to go with San Francisco. Because the Patriots are my dark horse as a Super Bowl threat, right? San Francisco can't qualify as a dark horse. The last time San Francisco was healthy, Shanahan designed the play. It was a Super Bowl win against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. It was a Super Bowl win. Just got to hit Sanders, and he missed.
For me, it has to be the Patriots. It has to be the Patriots because the simple fact of this. You look at the last 20 years, Max, the Patriots have missed the playoffs only 3 times. In one of those years, they went 11-5. 2008, that's when Matt Castle was the quarterback. Tom Brady got hurt, right? So you look at what Bill Belichick has done in free agency. He brought in a ton of guys on defense. He brought in tight ends on offense. He brought in wide receivers. He spent the most money that he's ever spent in his life when it comes to free agency. So what does that tell me? Bill Belichick does not like sitting at home come playoff time. So he wants to make the playoff again. So that's why I think this quarterback battle between Mac Jones and Cam Newton, which right now is not going well for Cam Newton, with the simple fact that he's going to miss.
It was going great for Cam Newton. By the way, it was going well for Mac Jones. Great for Cam Newton until these protocols.
But the simple fact that Cam Newton is missing these 5 days, and you have a guy like Bill Belichick who's saying that this opens up the door for Mac Jones, that's not good for him. But I think when it comes to Bill Belichick, he just wants a guy who's not going to turn the football over. He wants a guy who's going to go through his reads, get the football where it's supposed to go, and not lose in a football game. So that's why I think this is the most significant, because the Patriots organization, that's why I say they can't be a dark horse, Max. They won 6 Super Bowls in the last 20 years.
Yeah, but all with Tom Brady. Now listen, Mr. Harry Douglas. The fourth. The fact of the matter is, that was merely a dramatic pause I gave you, and then you thought I was done with my statement. That's just a pause. The dramatic pause was they almost won the Super Bowl. But here's the payoff, and this is why it's San Francisco. Garoppolo is capable of winning a Super Bowl. You can't tell me he's going to miss that throw every time, and he can help get you there. Remember, he wins 3 out of every 4 games he starts for a team that loses 3 out of every 4 he doesn't start, right? He can play. It's just not obvious. But you know what's obvious? Trey Lance's talent. Trey Lance's leadership, Trey Lance's learning curve, Trey Lance's arm, Trey Lance's legs, right? All that is obvious. And Garoppolo's injury history is also obvious. So you're talking about a potential Super Bowl team. What do? This is not like Chicago for me, where I don't see them winning the Super Bowl. So I say, throw Andy Dalton out there, using him as a tackling dummy, protect Justin Fields. This is different. Has shades of Mahomes and Alex Smith. Like, wait a minute, if you think you can win a Super Bowl, do you go with the guy with more ability, more upside, the guy in practice where people are going like, oh my God, you got to start this guy. Even if he's a little green, he's got too much talent. Or do you go with the guy with the experience, who all he does is win who came one pass away from a Super Bowl on a team that's loaded right now, and you got your best defensive monster back, right? What do you do? To me, that's the most significant because it can have implications this season on who plays in the Super Bowl.
And see, I got to go with the most successful organization over the last 20 years. It's a pride thing with Bill Belichick, right? Sitting on them sidelines last year, not being in those playoffs, competing to go to a Super Bowl and actually trying to win a Super Bowl. It's a pride thing with Bill Belichick. That's why we see him spend the money he spent in free agency. That's why we see him draft a #1 quarterback overall so he can compete with Cam Newton, so they can see who's the best guy for the job to get them back to the top of the hill.
Okay, with that being said, let's stay right in their division. Can the Patriots even compete with the Buffalo Bills?
Can they compete? I don't think they're going to win the division. I think the Buffalo Bills is going to win the division.
I think the Patriots can compete with the Bills, absolutely. What the Bills have that no one else in that division has is a quarterback who can kill you from the pocket and with his legs. Like Josh Allen every year got significantly better, right? Like Lamar Jackson, a guy like that, took the league by storm, and now we're waiting for certain things to improve still. Josh Allen, year over year, it's like, okay, he's a rookie, he has ability, he's no good yet. Next year, you know what? He's already a pretty good quarterback. Next year, damn, he's like almost an MVP level quarterback, right? Who in the division has something like that? I believe in Cam Newton, but I don't think of him as an MVP right now. You know, I think Tua has a chance to be good, not an MVP. And obviously, Zach Wilson is far away.
Max,
based on what's around him.
What did you think of Cam Newton last season before all the COVID?
I thought he was good. Like, I got to tell you, I thought the crispest, most exciting game of the season that featured two guys who I thought those are elite quarterbacks was Seattle and New England early on. I saw Russell Wilson, maybe the most valuable player in the NFL over the last half dozen years, right? If you add up all the value, maybe in no 1 year, but all together. I saw Russell Wilson and Cam Newton dueling. I saw Bobby Wagner, a great defensive player in his prime, need to make a goal line stand, make a play on the goal line.
One play away.
One play away. And Cam, through 5-6 weeks, until he got COVID, I was like, look at this dude.
But I will say, in that game, though, Cam did have a bad interception, right? 3-step game, quick game. You can't pat that football. You got to let it go.
Here, can I ask a question that's really been on my mind here with the COVID stuff, Harry? Mm-hmm. If you're a teammate and you're somebody that is vaccinated and you saw a situation with somebody like Cam last year, okay, he played, he came in, he played well, he gets COVID, he can't play, et cetera, and then their season falls. And now it's this season, and I understand it was a mix-up with the test, but there's a certain protocol he has to follow. He's not there for the week. If those kind of things happen, you know, your quarterback or a particular player might not be available. I mean, even for fantasy football, I've been thinking about that with the COVID factor. Are you frustrated, or do you think the coaching staff is, if somebody decides not to get vaccinated and then it impairs your team's success?
Well, first thing first, Molly, as a teammate, I'm going to try to convince all my guys to get vaccinated, right? I just had one of my best friends yesterday. He just got vaccinated. He texted me a picture of his card, say, I got my first shot, man. Mm-hmm. Appreciate your insight, right? So I'm going to do everything in my power to see if guys can get vaccinated. But at the same time, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink, Molly.
Mm-hmm.
Not in America, man. If you don't want to get vaccinated, this is the United States of America. No one's going to stick anything in your arm. Everyone will fight for that.
Unwanted.
But I mean, like, would it divide a locker room?
But this is my point.
Yeah.
That's your choice.
Yeah.
Stay home then. Stay home. The NFL has every right to be like, look, I mean, not only is it monumentally stupid in a public health crisis where we find, oh my God, a miracle, we have a vaccination, and it works incredibly well. But also people are reacting to misinformation and disinformation, sometimes put out intentionally to trick you to do the wrong thing. I like the fact that in the NFL now, for so many years, what was used to get players to be self-sacrificial, sacrifice for the team. This is not in your best interest, do it for the team. They're using that same ethos now, turning it around and saying, even if you don't want to get it, we respect that. But this is bad for the team if you don't get it, and bringing that pressure to bear.
Yeah.
And I tell you, Molly, even in Georgia, right? I go around with Peach State Health Plan, right? And we go on panels and all kind of things. The last one we did was at Morehouse School of Medicine, trying to get in between the misconceptions and let people know the misconceptions and have these talks in barbershops and all these other places with your friends and things of that nature. So I want to give a shout out to Peach State Health Plan for doing a great job in Georgia.
Yeah, appreciate you doing that. Props to you. Still to come, should we expect major regression from Lamar Jackson? That's what some folks are saying. Stay tuned. If some of those folks are sitting right next to me, Kimberly Martin will be here for that. Plus, wait until you hear Our quarterback, Dan Orlovsky's shocking take on the Patriots. During an appearance on Get Up, our Jeremy Fowler said there are a lot of people around the league who believe that this might be the year that everybody figures out Ravens star quarterback Lamar Jackson, who struggled at times, Max is laughing, last season, but still finished 7th in QBR. He was asked about those comments Tuesday.
Well, I don't know if you've heard this, but some unnamed team officials said that this is the year that people are going to be able to figure out Lamar Jackson. Have you heard? Did you hear that, or what would your reaction be if I didn't hear that?
I mean, I'm gonna keep playing football. We're gonna see, but I doubt it, dude. I doubt it. I strongly doubt it. We're gonna play ball.
Lamar Jackson took a slight step back last season after his unanimous MVP performance in 2019. His total QBR, pass yards, pass touchdowns, and completion percentage all regressed, but he believes the book on him is far from finished. Now we bring in my girl, Kimberly Martin. Hey, girl, hey.
They figured him out. They figured out Lamar. They figured out it's going to be a problem. We're playing Lamar. It's a problem. That's what they figured out.
Yeah, I'm more excited I get to see Kimberly, but we'll focus on Lamar. I'll start with you, Harry. Have teams figured him out?
Molly, this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard of in my life. And I'll tell you this. As a defensive coach, you can draw up whatever you want to draw up on that board. But when you get out there on that football field, those bullets are flying very, very differently. Now, when Lamar Jackson is in that pistol formation and you have J.K. Dobbins behind him or Gus Edwards, and they're coming downhill full speed, and then he decides to pull it, now you have a defender right there, and that defender is in la-la land trying to figure out what he's going to do. But then just to say he's sitting in front of him, and then you have stacked receivers out there out wide that he can throw it to off of that. It's impossible. I remember last year tweeting during one of the games that the Ravens had, right? And all I kept seeing is the secondary guys trying to tackle J.K. Dobbins, trying to tackle Gus Edwards, trying to tackle Lamar Jackson. And after a while, most corners in the National Football League do not want to tackle. Better yet, don't want to tackle two stout running backs. Better yet, don't want to tackle a guy who runs a 4.3.
They're out there for coverage. I mean, you know.
And a guy that can put the moves on you, got them fries that'll cross your eyes, Max, got them shakes that'll make you quake. Listen, teams have not figured out Lamar Jackson. They haven't last year. They didn't the year before. They're not going to figure him out this year. And the young man is just so special. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon.
Well, look, I have a little bit of a different opinion about it. Obviously, what they figured out is he's really good. It's hard to beat. No one's perfect. I think like one of the things that, you hear and you can see from, you take bits and pieces throughout their career, you play a gang of defensive backs, so you get an early lead. That's easier said than done, right? But if you have an early lead, play a gang of defensive backs and then give him the run, let Lamar run and punish him early in the game when he does, then you wear him out and by late in the game, now go ahead, beat us with your arm. But you know what there's something you can try and it might work because no one's perfect. But you know something? Per Warren Sharp Analytics, Lamar Jackson has 85 total touchdowns in his 37 starts. You know where that ranks all time at this point through 37 starts? Third, all time. Patrick Mahomes is 1, Dan Marino's 2. Well, what about passing touchdowns, right? Not just, of course he can run it. What about passing touchdowns? He has 67. You know what that ranks? Tied for 11th with who? Through this many starts in his career. Aaron Rodgers, tied for 11th all-time passing touchdowns. The idea that he can't beat you with his arm is overstated. However, let's not pretend that is not actually an issue. It is. He is not at age 21, he was the most accurate passer history of the NFL by the numbers. At age 24, he was not. Now, the trajectory has not maintained. Now, they haven't gotten him real dynamic offensive weapons in the past. And now they brought in, they drafted Bateman and they bring in Watkins. They have a little more there now. But now it will be incumbent upon Lamar Jackson to prove that he can do that if he's behind in the game. That he can not just thread the needle. A lot of guys can do that, but do that consistently and throw it down the field. I'm not saying he can't, but he still has to prove that.
So Max brings up a good point about the passing attack and the run game. When I heard this report, my eyes got really big because I was like, people are actually saying that. Now they just given Lamar some bulletin board material for him to cut you up some more. But the thing with the Ravens, it's no secret there's no secret game plan for how to stop them. Everybody knows you have to stop the run. Have teams been able to do that consistently? No. So that's what's so fascinating to me about these comments, because it's year 4. Usually defensive coordinators, coaches will say, give me a couple games, give me 3 games. You give me a whole season, yeah, that next year I got something for that QB. Okay, but Lamar was the league MVP in 2019. Okay, so year 2 they couldn't figure him out. Year 3, we're going into year 4. What has changed? Everybody knows that. Yes, they have issues with the passing attack. Yes, they've tried to address the wide receiver position. Yes, they had Des Bryant and they brought in Sammy Watkins, and they're really excited about Rashad Bateman, but guys are injured. It's an issue. Max is right. But to say that you can figure out one of the most dynamic QBs to play the game, and it's year 4, and you haven't been able to do, like, every year the guy's been in the league, he's made the playoffs. So I'm trying to make the math add up,
more than that,
make it make sense.
It's more than that. Just he's been in the playoffs as a very, very, very young player. He was a deer in headlights first half. It's the worst you can ever see a quarterback. Second half, he was better. Then the next year, he played pretty well in the playoffs. Not perfect, but he played pretty well. And then last year, he won a playoff game. It's not just that he's in the playoffs every year. He's getting better in the playoffs every year. But I do think if you play a whole gang of defensive backs, right, not only are you encouraging the run, but you also have speed on the field to deal with Lamar Jackson running the ball. And if you can really lay it on him early in the game, doing with that strategy, then maybe you could. There's no quarterback is foolproof, and that includes Lamar Jackson.
Max and Kimberly, I think the most fascinating thing for me is the simple fact that every team that's going into a game and playing Lamar Jackson in that offense know that they're going to run the ball 100%, and they still can't stop it. But you want to know why it's probably more difficult? What team's most backup quarterback or scout team quarterback can run and move like Lamar Jackson?
Nobody.
So you can't even mimic it in practice.
Of course not.
You can have guys trying to read their keys, but when you have a guy with that athleticism, it's not going to get done.
Okay, so what if you get behind in a game, right? You get behind in the game and you can't pound the rock. You got to get some points up. Do you trust how confident are you, I'll put it this way, Harry, in their passing attack?
I'll say this. Am I confident that Lamar Jackson can be a better passer? Yes, I'm confident. Now, I think the thing is that issue is on Lamar Jackson, Greg Roman, and those receivers. Collectively, they have to do a better job of emphasizing the pass game, because that's my MO. If they get down big in a playoff game, can they come back? We've seen it happen in 2019 with the Tennessee Titans. They got down big in that football game, Max. They couldn't come back because that wasn't their MO. So I think they have to emphasize the pass game more and work on it so they actually can if the situation arises.
Well, once upon a time, to hoodwink people into thinking that, well, first of all, this was basically a racial thing. It really was cutting against black quarterbacks was like, I think, a lot of the impetus for this, even though I don't know if people were aware that's why they were doing it. But the idea was, don't use your legs if you're a quarterback so much. And why was it really? Well, when you break it down, it's because if you can always pick up that first down with your legs, it's too tempting, then you never develop in the pocket. And that's BS, as we can see from this modern NFL. But it doesn't mean just because it's largely used in a bad way that there's no truth to it. Yes, you're right. When you can pick up 1,000 yards with your legs, you've had less opportunity to get a feel in the pocket and throw the ball, right? You're going to be less experienced in that way. And what Lamar has to prove this year, it's not like anyone's off the hook here, including Lamar, is okay. Brought in some weapons. This is what people are saying. Can you get to be better in this facet of your game? It's year 4. And that's the challenge for him.
Yeah, because, listen, I covered a lot of AFC North games last year, and even in the preseason, heading into week 1, the Ravens, they're all talking about Super Bowl. They're like, we've got a Super Bowl squad. They have not won a Super Bowl with Lamar Jackson as quarterback. Can they? Of course. But to Harry's point, they've tried to address the wide receiver position. They have tried. It has not always worked. When you think about, but when you play the Ravens, you know that they're going to try to gash you with running backs. Like, that's what they're going to do. That's their MO. So they can't stray too far away from their strength. But you need to be able to see this team take that next step. You need Lamar to at least prove that consistently, it's not just hitting Mark Andrews, it's hitting other guys, because we all know Mark Andrews is a beast. Like, it's about hitting other guys. And now these comments, don't think like Lamar doesn't care. He may have shrugged that off like, I don't think that's true. That's up here. He's not going to forget that. So congratulations, everybody. You just made Lamar mad. So we'll see what happens.
I guess kind of what I was asking there, and you guys did answer my question, but is there enough talent in terms of the weapons? And I just want to reiterate that one more time to you, Harry, obviously playing the position. Is there enough talent at the receiver position?
I think it's enough talent now. The simple fact that they brought in Sammy Watkins, they drafted Rashard Bateman. You have Hollywood Brown. He has to get healthy. You have Mark Andrews at the tight end position. And not to mention, you got Oklahoma State, Tylen Wallace, another wide receiver that they brought in. So I think now they have the guys. It's just a matter of them getting the reps. Yeah. Right, Molly? Getting comfortable with the pass game.
Well, I don't know. We have to see what Bateman is in the pros, right? Like,
because
Bateman doesn't do any one thing that you're like, oh my God, that's the best I've ever seen. He's just a good player. And we got to see what he is in the pros. He can play. I agree.
He can play, Max.
I agree. But, like, that has to be, I don't know. I wouldn't say their receiving weapons are elite. I would say they're better than they were, and they should be good enough.
But they can get the job done.
They can get the job done.
And they still are favored in the AFC North, and we know that division's no slouch. All right, Kimberly, thank you so much for being with us. And do you want to hear more from Kimberly? Yes, you do. So you can check out the First Take, Her Take podcast, Shout to the Ladies, alongside Elle Duncan and Charlie Arnold. New episodes drop every Wednesday. You can check that out on Apple, Spotify, or the ESPN app. Love me
right
some good girl talk. Okay, guys, our resident quarterback, thanks, Kim. Dan Orlovsky knows exactly why the Bears chose Andy Dalton over let's get into it. So in Jacksonville, things aren't looking good with rookie running backs Travis Etienne out for the season. Oh, huge loss. Is it Lawrence or Minshew? Harry, what advice do you give Trevor Lawrence?
Trevor Lawrence, it's going to be okay. Don't you be upset. I know this offensive line is not doing what you needed to do, but I will go, if I was you, I would go with Urban Meyer. I will go to my offensive coordinator and let them know what I like and what I don't dislike. At the end of the day, it's your career that's on the line.
In New Orleans, Winston looked great in the second preseason game. Taysom Hill may be out of the starting job. Max, what advice would you give Sean Payton?
Coach, this is an easy call at this point. I was on the fence, but I thought if it's close, the tie goes to Jameis because he has more upside, he has more downside, which helps you in the draft. And you can use Taysom Hill on the field even if he's not the quarterback. Not the same with Jameis. Then after Monday Night Football, case closed. Jameis is number one, so it isn't close. It's an easy call at this point.
All right, and the Shy, Nagy names Andy Dalton the starter for Week 1. Harry, what advice do you give to Justin Field while he rides the bench?
What Tupac told us all, keep your head up, young man. Hey, stay ready so you don't have to get ready. While you're over there on the sideline, soak up everything you can.
All right, I like that advice.
Let's go word.
Now we bring in my guy, Dan Orlovsky. Dan, top of the morning to you, sir. I like the light colors. It's working for you. Very summertime. We are going to jump right into it.
Let's go. Thank you.
So summer. It's about to be fall, so get prepared for it.
Molly, come on.
What?
We're still in August. Just don't do that.
We're still in August. Isn't it September Monday?
Just come on. Let us enjoy the summer.
Oh my goodness. Everyone's back
Slow
in
up,
school.
Molly.
Party's
let us
over.
Northeasterners hang on as long as we can. We got to hang on as long as we can. Those of us who live in the Northeast, man.
I don't know about that. I like September. That's my birthday month.
Okay. Everybody's got their own agenda. So does Matt Nagy. I'm going to start with you, Max. Do you agree or disagree with Matt Nagy's selection of Andy Dalton?
Not only do I agree with Matt Nagy's selection, but I find it commendable because his job is on the line. And when you put the franchise ahead of the team, when it's your butt in the hot seat, that deserves praise. Justin Fields gives them a better chance to win week to week, I believe, especially behind a porous offensive line because he's got legs, right? And he has an electric arm and he's a leader and all those things. So the fact that they're looking at this kid and going, wait a minute. Guys, I'm 48 years old. The Bears have never had a great quarterback in my lifetime. Never. Jay Cutler, by my count, is like the third best quarterback they've had in almost a half century. That is terrible, right? Now you have a chance to have a great one. A great one. Don't make it like Tua last year. Here's the ball, let me get it back. Here's the ball, let me get it back. Make sure when you give it to him, he keeps it for 15 years. He doesn't have to look back. That's one. But two, when he got leveled in the preseason, it reminded me, and you could tell me, well, that's not just the offensive line, but it reminded me of that offensive line. Let Andy Dalton be the tackling dummy early in the season. Protect Justin Fields at all costs so that you ensure the future of the franchise. When a coach whose job is on the line puts the franchise over the team, which I believe is happening right now, that actually deserves praise.
Max and Dan, I don't like it at all because I think Justin Fields gives this organization the best chance to win right now. Not only that, I think Justin Fields, his energy, he can bring a different energy to a franchise, not just the organization, but to the fans, right? Justin Fields can get this team to where they want to go. They have a great defense, and I don't want them to get to the simple point to where that defense starts to get restless, right? Understanding and questioning Matt Nagy, is he making the right decisions that's best for this football team moving forward?
I would play Justin Fields. I've said that since the moment they drafted him. Number one, I think that there's two reasons to not play a first-round draft pick at the quarterback position. The first reason would be if they don't have any type of skill or trait that would allow them to survive. You want your quarterback early on to survive and then to thrive. So do they have any skill or trait that is going to allow them to survive? Justin Fields has shown that he does. Obviously, the athleticism is a part of that. I think his ability to handle things at the line of scrimmage, at least early on, is a part of that. And then he pushes the ball downfield really well. So there's the ability to survive before he ever thrives. The second reason would be if everybody around him stinks, that you're so concerned with the offensive line being so bad or their skill position players not being, and Harry, you know this, not being able to get open, so he has to hold on to the football, that the rush is going to get home. And I do believe that there's validity to that with the Chicago Bears situation. I think, Max, your point of it being commendable because he's concerned about the offensive line is a fair one. I still sit there and go, you got to go play the kid because your jobs are on the line. And I think the only reason that they're playing Andy Dalton, this is an assumption, is that they told Andy Dalton when they signed him, hey, we're going to play you. We'll play you early on. We don't know, we might draft a guy, but we're going to play you. And they're trying to keep their word on that because the reality of the general manager, Ryan Pace, and Matt Nagy having a second young quarterback to, in Ryan Pace's situation, hand select, and then Matt Nagy's situation to groom is very rare in the NFL. And they not only have to win, but they have to show that they can show development with Justin Fields. And so now, starting Andy Dalton, my mind goes to three things. When, what, and why. When is Justin Fields then going to get on the field? What and why is going to get him onto the field? And I'm hoping, because Matt Nagy said in a press conference yesterday, it's time to produce. And that's my concern. And that's my concern. Whose time is it to produce? Whose turn is it to produce? Because I go back to last year. This football team was 2-0 on the road at Atlanta. Mitchell Trubisky, up until that point, had thrown for 6 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. So are you going to bench Justin Fields because the team's not playing well? Because you benched Mitchell Trubisky last year. Excuse me. Are you going to bench Andy Dalton because the team's not playing well? Because you benched Trubisky last year and that wasn't the case. Are you going to bench him because Andy Dalton's not playing well? Because you benched Mitchell Trubisky and that wasn't the case. So that's my hope is that he says, I'm not playing Justin Fields if this is your reasoning because the offensive line's not good enough now. And until they're good enough, I'm not going to play him. If that's what he's going to say, I can sit and have a conversation with that. But I also don't think that Andy Dalton gives this team the best chance to win in November than Justin Fields does. I would play Justin Fields.
Dan, one of the things that I brought up is being able to improvise at the quarterback position, right? And we've even seen that in preseason, right? Andy Dalton, the last game, 3rd down, can elude pressure, get sacked. Justin Fields, 4th and 3, it's not there. Pressure, people are coming on the defensive line. He picks up the 1st down. But we've seen that in the first game. We've seen that in the second game. And we've seen guys thrive. That energy, that synergy, when you have energy like that, Dan and Max, it's infectious on your football team.
What I'll say is Justin Fields is the best man for the job at this moment. To me, that's not the only consideration. And I know it's delicate in the NFL because guys are here today, gone tomorrow. The locker room's not trying to hear, as we discussed earlier, Harry. Well, this is for us down the road. Hold up, I'm playing now. This is my life and my career now. You're telling me to sacrifice everything for this team now, but you don't want to put out the best? I get that. That's tricky. I'm not pretending it's not. And you look at the Bears last year. Trubisky could outrun the linebackers, couldn't throw the ball down the field. Foles, if you give him a pocket, can throw the ball down the field. Wrong guy for that O-line. Can't get out of the way, right? So it's a disaster. Justin Fields runs better than Trubisky, throws better than Foles. He's the best of all worlds. But that's what I'm saying. Because and this is why before the draft, I was advocating for the Bears to trade up and grab Justin Fields. Because he has a chance to be a great quarterback, something they've never had. I would not risk it behind that O-line early in his rookie year.
Yeah, but Max, you're not going to get fired, though. That's the thing.
That's why it's amazing that they're doing this.
But that's why. But that's not reality in the NFL. Everyone continues to talk about this situation without the context of the situation. Mac Jones doesn't have to get rushed on the field, so to speak, because they're not in jeopardy of losing their job. Trey Lance doesn't have to get rushed on the field, so to speak, because they're not necessarily in the hot seat.
Let me ask you something. So are you arguing? So it sounds to me like you're arguing it's a foolish, selfless decision by Nagy, right? You're arguing it's foolish because he's being selfless.
Yes.
He should be selfish and put his own self-interest over the long-term interest of the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, Max, I have stated that this is a terrible situation. I have said that this is because the way I've coined it is Matt Nagy has to play Justin Fields to save his job, and the Chicago Bears organization can't play Justin Fields because I don't think their offensive line is good enough to keep him safe early on. And I just, it's a
Nagy's being
it's a bad
overruled,
situation.
Dan?
Shouldn't we encourage that kind of behavior from the coach, though?
Yeah, who's making the decision?
Yes,
Dan?
but it's not a reality, Max. Max, it's not a reality. Molly, to answer your question, that's my only explanation. Because there's no way, and I haven't seen practice every day, but I talk to people. I know people within that organization. There's no way that he can sit there and go, that's our best chance to win games this year. Not just week 1, week 7, week 8, week 9, November,
I feel
December.
the same way, Dan.
Well, you know, Dan, guys, he
chance.
can play week 7, week 8. I'm not offensive lines, by the way, as bad as they are. Okay. By the way, I'm a Giants fan, and I look at the Bears O-line and go, well, that's a bad line. Now, you know it's bad. But the point is, over time, they can gel a little bit. Yep.
Let me touch on that because, Molly, you asked this question the other day, and I texted you saying it was a good question. When you said, well, why are all these young quarterbacks, why are they able to come in and play quicker nowadays in comparison to 20 years ago? And this is Max, like you're sitting, his ability to sit there and learn. These kids come into the NFL with 10 years of 7-on-7 passing camps, with private training. These guys are so much more intellectually and mentally advanced for the game of football nowadays than when guys came in 2000, 2005. When guys came in 15 years ago, it was like, what is an under or an over front? Or what do you mean it's cover 1 versus cover 3? Nowadays, these guys are getting taught from the age of 10 or 12 with these private camps and these quarterback camps and this training of all these different, how coverages are tied to fronts. And again, the game is so different with RPOs and quarterback run. You don't need to sit young quarterbacks anymore and develop them or so they can learn like you had to 15 or 20 years ago, like it was best for them 15, 20 years ago.
But he's explaining why it doesn't need to happen anymore.
That's not even the same situation, Max.
And can we stop? Yeah, thank you. Can we stop comparing every quarterback to Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes? Can we stop that?
Yeah, they are outliers.
His talent's an outlier, but he's sat
do you think that?
But he had Alex Smith ahead of him. What are you talking about?
Yeah, but he was probably better.
Go ahead, Dan.
Do you think that Patrick Mahomes right now would not be the best player in football if he didn't sit for that year?
No, but I will say this. I imagine he was better than Alex Smith. He probably gave them a better chance to win in his rookie year than Alex Smith. But as a result of sitting that year, he was probably better in his second year than he otherwise would have been.
That's fair.
Because he sat. That's what
but
I'm saying.
But it's not a necessity. And it's not needed.
But, well, maybe
not for Justin. Wasn't going to get fired if they lost.
Dan, not for Justin Fields, you're right. Maybe for Trey Lance more than Justin Fields, right? Because Justin Fields looks closer to being a finished product, to me at least. But if Justin Fields had an offensive line that was mid-pack, I would be with you. When he got leveled in preseason, it reminded me, oh my God, that's right. You can get killed out there behind those guys.
Well, that's one of the things I want to talk to Dan about. Dan, when you look at this Chicago Bears team last year offensively, right? They struggle on the offensive line with protections, making the right calls against the blitz. So I would think going into this year, the offensive staff would emphasize those things so you don't have those mistakes. So I'm trying to think, should I put this more on the offensive staff or should I put this on the players? Because if everyone's not on the same page and you don't emphasize that, then what are you going to be?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. Put it on the offensive staff. They get paid. That's their job. Specifically, the offensive, whatever group handles the protection communication, offensive line and quarterbacks coach. It's their job to make sure that people understand what the plan is, and then can you go and execute that plan. That play that you guys continue to talk about, that's a fair play. I've also got evidence, go on my Twitter page, of Justin Fields on the road at Penn State, going up to the line of scrimmage, changing the protection, seeing the blitz, throwing hot for a touchdown. So it's not the inability to do it, it's just being given the tools to go do it. Coaches' jobs are to go, what can you and what can't you do? Listen, protections are difficult. I'm not going to argue that they're not. But we make them more complicated than they need to be. It's either and I broke this down on NFL Live. When you watch that guy go in motion during that play, the play where he gets his helmet knocked off, you watch the guy go in motion, it's like listening to a newborn baby cry. Not a single sound is made. Not a single sound. You watch them and you listen, you're like, there's no communication. That's on coaching. Because I would sit in that meeting room the day after that happened and I would go, what the fudge are we doing, fellas? What are we doing? Because it's either the offensive line controls it and then it's on you, or quarterback, you control it and it's on you. But for both units to be quiet, that tells me coaching.
One thing we all agree on, I think, is Justin Fields is the best quarterback on the team.
No doubt.
Yeah. And Dan, thank you for explaining why these young rookies can start right now out of the gate, because that was on my mind for quite a bit. I wanted to ask you about Mac and Cam. We don't have time for that. I'm sure you'll be getting into that with NFL Live. And I also want to say that David Goggins book behind you, so good. Everyone at home should get that. How good is it, right? It's about a story of a Navy SEAL. It is incredible. We will leave it there. All right, Dan, we'll talk to you soon. See you on NFL Live. Has there ever been a better crop of wide receivers in the NFL at one time? We'll force Harry Douglas to pick one.
Julio healthy, he a dog. Julio can do it all.
They try to put me down, but I'm still on top.
A lot of amazing wide receivers in the NFL, but only 5 can make the list. So we go to former NFL receiver Harry Douglas, who obviously played for the Tennessee Titans and the Atlanta Falcons. Who are your top 5 wideouts in the NFL, sir?
Molly, my number 5 is going to be Stephon Diggs, a guy that I know is hard to press. He has the speed, he has the quickness. Not only that, he has reliable hands, and he had a chance to be a number 1 receiver with the Buffalo Bills. Now, at number 4, I have a guy named Tyreek Hill. Now, before I seen Tyreek Hill play, I played with a guy named Devin Hester. Devin Hester was the fastest guy I seen with a football in his hands. Until I seen Tyreek Hill. Now, I'm not going to just sit up here and say that Tyreek Hill was faster than him. I'm just going to say they both have the same amount of speed, which definitely can't be taught, Max.
Tyreek is a receiver. Yes. Tyreek is a receiver. He's not just fast.
He can do it all. He's explosive, and we see what he means to the Kansas City Chiefs offense. Now, at number 3, this is where it gets real interesting. DeAndre Hopkins, a guy, I think out of all these guys, DeAndre Hopkins might be the most reliable, right? He's a guy that you can just throw the football up to, rely on him to catch it. We see the Hail Murray right there, D-Hop doing his thing, and I think he's been consistent. Now, number 2, this is where it gets real interesting, Max. I have Devontae Adams. We talk about release game. His release game is unbelievable. He's Aaron Rodgers' favorite target. Devontae Adams has produced the last few years. He's a guy that Aaron Rodgers is going to go to in any situation. Now at number 1, come on, Max, don't look at me like that. It's no surprise. I have Julio Jones, a former teammate. Not only do I see Julio doing the things that y'all are showing on the screen right now, I had the opportunity to play with him and see him in practice. I've never seen a guy with his size, with his speed, with his quickness, and can get in and out of breaks like no other. So Julio Jones is my top receiver, baby.
I like the fact that you put Julio Jones 1. No one does that right now. And so much of your production in the NFL is your circumstances, your surroundings and everything. But when I think of the top receivers in the game, a couple of years back, the 3 were A.B., Odell, and Julio, whatever order you want to put them in. I don't feel like the current crop is quite on that level athletically. I feel like those guys were, oh my God, am I watching the best guy I've ever seen? Devontae Adams, Michael Thomas, when he's healthy. These guys are great receivers, of course. But I'm just not sure that Julio Jones, AB, or Odell are past their primes even. You know, I got to see AB in a full season. He looked pretty good. I think he's the best receiver on a team with 3 great receivers. I got to see Odell back on the field, you know, for a real team trying to fit in. Yeah, but healthy for a season. That guy was otherworldly. And Julio Jones, you're right. Julio Jones in the right situation, maybe still. So I hear you. Tyreek Hill, I love that pick because he's like one of those dudes. Like, I'm looking at somebody different.
Listen,
I'm looking at somebody athletically different.
You want to know what a DB says when they see Tyreek Hill lined up in front of them? Oh, damn. Here we go again. Here we go.
What happened to Antonio Brown? He just fell off?
Well, it's not the simple fact that he fell off. It's that you have other guys on his team. I think Antonio Brown, you look at the Tampa Bay Bucks, Antonio Brown can still play the game, but right now he's not the focal point with the Bucks.
I'll say DeAndre Hopkins. Like, when I think about the best hands I've ever seen.
And look how big they are.
You know, I'm just like, guys, when you talk about reliable, like, just throw it near Chris Carter or Larry Fitzgerald or something. DeAndre Hopkins is one of the guys you'll tell your grandkids about when it comes to, oh, man, you want to talk about a pair of hands, right? He's one of those guys.
And another reason why I put Julio 1 is that there's numerous of occasions where I've seen Julio get double teamed, but the double team doesn't matter. He still makes the play.
What doesn't Julio do? Julio's kind of the perfect receiver. If you're looking for a perfect receiver, locker room, media, size, speed, like any category you want to check, Julio checks every box. But it's so much of it is the scheme you're in, the production as a result of that, how your team's doing, and the perception, can you avoid injury? I'm just saying, if those 3 guys that I mentioned are healthy, we may have a very different view of the best receivers. Odell, AB, and Julio.
That's
really
what I was going to say. I was surprised
that.
that you didn't mention Antonio Brown, Odell.
But one thing I'll say about all 5 of these guys, you know what they can do? They can play outside. They can play inside. They can move around. They can play off different platforms when it comes to the being on the actual football field going against DBs.
Let's stay with this. Best receiving tandem, Max.
I think you talk about Julio, him and A.J. Brown. If you like, I'm not talking about 3. If you go 3 deep, I'm going to Tampa, right? Because those 3 might be the best 3 where each guy is at a certain level I've ever seen. Like, because AB might still be an all-time great, and Godwin and Evans, who's better between those? Who knows, right? Just 2, we're talking about a tandem, Julio and A.J. Brown, I think. I mean, that is, who's one? I mean, like, I don't know. A.J. Brown is that good. You think, oh, slot, whatever, but the yards after catch, the whole thing, you put that with a motivated Julio Jones, that's a problem.
Not only that, not a motivated Julio Jones, but you put that with a Derrick Henry who led the league in rushing the last 2 years. Now our team's going to come in that box and stack that box, and you leave those 2 guys one-on-one on the island so they can torch your corner. So defensive coordinators, if defensive coordinators are sleeping at night, they're doing something wrong when it comes to
plus that defense. I know you think it's going to get better, but you might be playing from behind. You might have to air it out to Julio a little bit.
Okay, I'm not going from a receiver fresh out of the league, you went Diggs, Hill, Hopkins, Adams, and then Julio #1, just to recap. So our ESPN.com panel of NFL experts released their preseason power rankings. Whose team locked up the #1 overall spot? Touchdown Tommy or Monster Mahomes? Up next, we are talking Bucks and Chiefs on First Take. Stay here.
Yeah. Devontae Adams is everyone's pick if you're being fair right now.
I don't know. I think you should have showed Odell and AB some love, but that's you.
Molly, I don't have to show nobody love.
Yeah. By the way,
rankings were recently released on ESPN.com, and last season's runner-up, the Kansas City Chiefs, took on the top spot, followed by the defending Super Bowl champion, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The top 5 is rounded out by the Bills, the Packers, and the Matt Stafford-led Rams. Is anybody ranked too high, Max Kellerman?
Well, I'll leave that to, I know you have some feelings about that, Harry. I'll leave the overrated to you. I have one I think is underrated.
I'll tell you, if you didn't beat the champs the year before, I don't see how you can be #1 in the rankings, right? To be #1, you got to beat #1. What did we see last year in the Super Bowl? We seen the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defeat the Kansas City Chiefs. So with that being said, I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers should be #1. Not to mention, though, Max, they bring back all 11 starters on offense. They bring back all 11 starters on defense.
That's 22
So I don't know who's making those rankings, but if you want the Kansas City Chiefs to be #1, tell them to beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
That's
they're
legitimate.
the defending champions.
Look, that's legitimate. It's not like they just barely beat the Chiefs. They shellacked them. However, going into the game, it was obvious the Chiefs were going to have problems because they were missing both their starting tackles.
That's not the Tampa Bay Buccaneers' fault.
It's not.
Injuries happen.
It's not, but we have to reevaluate every year. And the way they've addressed the offensive line, I mean, you could not do better in the offseason, not on paper. You got the premier left tackle on the market. You got the premier left guard on the market. The quarterback's blind side is fixed. Mahomes' foot is better. Like, you could not have done a better job addressing it. So I hear you, but I wouldn't say that's the biggest mistake here. I think the Niners are underrated. I think the Niners have a low ranking here.
I agree.
Bosa coming back is an animal. He's a beast. I know we're not supposed to call athletes animals and beasts, and it's dehumanizing. Everyone knows what I mean. But I've seen him knocked down on a play, clawing to get to the quarterback. Like, he's not. Both Bosa brothers are awesome. And certainly San Francisco has an awesome one. He's back. That changes everything on the front seven. And then at the moment, you have a healthy Garoppolo. As I said, you can pencil in for Garoppolo a 750 winning percentage for this team. They're a 250 winning percentage team when he doesn't play. But this time, if he doesn't play, they got Trey Lance. I think 10's a little low.
Now, I'll say this. When you look at the 49ers and you look at the rest of these teams, where will you put them? Because I will put the 49ers right now at 4 ahead of Green Bay.
That's a whole... I can't put them ahead of Green Bay because I think Aaron Rodgers is going to be on a mission this year. And I think he's playing with the most complete team he's played with maybe in his career, but certainly it's up there.
And I know we're going by a year basis, and I know this year is 2021, but what happened to the Green Bay Packers the last 2 times they played the San Francisco 49ers? Do you remember?
No, in the regular season? Or
regular
in the playoffs?
Season and playoffs. They couldn't stop the run.
Yeah.
They couldn't stop the run.
So by the way, a lot of teams have a problem stopping the Niners' run.
Yeah, you're right about that, but I wouldn't put the 49ers at 10. I don't know who made this list. Putting them at 10 is just ridiculous.
I agree. It's but that's the one glaring one. I think they got the list pretty good. Other than that, I'd flip-flop the Browns and the Ravens, but I think the list is more or less right. I think the Browns are the class of the AFC North.
I would put the Seahawks 10.
Yeah, I agree because of the defense. Yep. You could put Seahawks to me or Titans. Well, Titans.
You think the Browns are the class of the AFC North, not the Ravens?
I agree with that too.
Yeah,
I think the Browns are going to win the AFC North.
I know this is boring because I don't think Baker Mayfield's as good as Lamar Jackson, but I think he's good. But when Pro Football Focus is rating the offensive lines, and they're like, this graded out as the top run blocking offensive line. It also graded out as the top pass protecting offensive line. Every year you got a top offensive line. It is almost never number one in both. It's number one in both. And then you have 2 running backs who are both awesome running behind that offensive line. And then you're getting
ends.
And then 2 tight ends,
2 wide receivers.
And then you're getting
2 of everything.
Beckham Jr. back. Odell Beckham Jr. totally motivated to save his career. And they got a defense.
You know what I love about the Browns offensive line? So I had an opportunity to have Jedrick Wills Jr. and Jack Conklin on my show, a YouTube show called the HD Connection, right? And on the field, these are 2 of the nastiest guys you will ever see. But on the show, and off the field, they're 2 of the nicest guys that you would ever meet. So I actually had a chance to play with Jack Conklin in Tennessee, and he's just an awesome guy, man.
They also improved on, I know Clowney, the reputation is, Clowney's always been very good against the run.
Tad McKinley, too. They got him from Atlanta,
former
first-round draft pick.
That's right. And when you're lining up opposite Myles Garrett, that's going to help you get to the quarterback because you're going to have to devote resources to Myles Garrett.
You talk about one-on-ones, Mac. You're going to get one-on-ones across the board.
They got
You know what else I
got a
find
lot.
Interesting? We're going to talk about both your teams.
They got the secondary coming back.
Atlanta Falcons and the Giants. The Atlanta Falcons
I gotta bring that up.
at 23 ahead of our Giants at 24.
I think what has happened with the Giants...
Now the list knows what it's talking about.
I think what's happened with the Giants is the same thing that happened to me. We assume the line can't get worse. They were the worst offensive line in football last year. I'm on the Bears, but really the Giants probably had the worst offensive line. Gettleman, every year the GM, we're going to hog mollies, we're going to fix the offensive line. They haven't gotten any better in 3 years now. I was assuming, maybe I was wishing, they got to get better than last year, right? Now, then you watch preseason and you go, same old thing. And I think, but if the line gets better by 20%, I'm telling you the Giants will be slept on. Every other part of the roster, including the coach, you go, okay, they can play defense. They got a lot of skills positions, guys, who can really, who are explosive, right? They got a lot. They have a no-name, their defense, really, when you look at it, it's not Washington, but that's not an average defense. It's above average. And it comes down to Daniel Jones, who gets Saquon back, who has his leg back, right? If the line holds, the Giants will surprise people.
Well, I'll say this about Atlanta. I think their success offensively is going to be predicated off their offensive line because of who their new coach is, and Arthur Smith and what he wants to do. He wants to run the football. So if this offense is only going to go as far as the offensive line allows it. So if they're great, the run game's going to be great. Now the play action game could be great, and now Matt Ryan could be great. And now these tight end sets that Arthur Smith is going to use,
especially
2 tight ends, 3 tight ends. Calvin Ridley finally could be a number 1 receiver. If their offensive line can be right, I think the Falcons could be decent.
The Falcons season to me is a referendum on Matt Ryan, though, because they didn't move on. They doubled down. They brought in a couple offensive linemen in the draft. They brought in maybe the best offensive player at his position in the draft ever, or one of it ever, right? Like they are trying to give Matt Ryan every chance.
See what he can do. Breaking news, it was announced this morning that the Rams have acquired Sony Michel from the Patriots for 2 conditional draft picks, one in the 5th round, another in the 6th. The addition of Michel will help fill the void left by Cam Akers, who tore his Achilles working out before the season. That was a devastating injury, especially how well he was playing towards the end of the season for LA. What does this trade mean for the Rams, Harry?
I'll say it tells me a lot about Sean McVay. He understands what's the window for the Los Angeles Rams, right? And that window is right now. You traded Jared Goff. You brought in Matthew Stafford. You understand that your football team has a chance this year. You have Aaron Donald on defense. You have Jalen Ramsey, possibly the best corner on defense. So you don't want to miss your window. And when he's seen Cam Akers go down and then Henderson just have this thumb injury. And I tell you, Max, one of the worst things you can injure on your hand is your thumb. Why? Because it's the base for everything. You don't want to injure your thumb. So I like the move by Sean McVay. Les Snead used to be in Atlanta as well, to give this Los Angeles Rams teams an opportunity to thrive this season.
Okay, let me quickly say what it means for the Rams. It just means they need depth at running back, right? Like Cam Akers is devastating. Usually you lose a running back, it's not that devastating. You can get another guy. Cam Akers was trending toward elite last year, and it looked really good for them. And when you think what Sean McVay did with Gurley and Goff, what could he do with Akers and Stafford, right? He needs depth there, as you said, further injuries to the depth. And I hate saying this about a player while he's active especially. What does Sony Michel do well exactly? What does he do above average right now at the position? You know, to me, this is a much bigger commentary on the Patriots. And this is the reason Tom Brady's not there anymore. Tom Brady restructuring the deal, constantly restructuring his deal. Okay, go spend my money. You're not getting me anything because you're not getting me anything in the draft. The Patriots spent a first-round pick on Sony Michel. Bill Belichick spent a first-round pick on Sony Michel. He just got back 2 late-round picks for him. And he really didn't do much while on the Patriots. That's why Tom Brady's not there. Because Bill Belichick failed to draft offensive talent, and he failed to use the contract restructuring of Brady to go get Brady offensive talent. Sony Michel is, I hate to say it about it, dude. I'm not trying to down him. I'm just being honest.
But I'll tell you this. One of the things he might bring to the Rams is experience, right? He's played in the Super Bowl. He has that experience. You don't have that on the Rams when it comes to the running back.
And run between the tackles.
And I know that's what Thomas Brown, their running back coach, wants to do. He wants to have that experience and a guy back there that he know he can count on. And in that run game and in that system, we all know that Shanahan system. It really doesn't matter who's the running back, right?
Right.
It's all about scheme and can the offensive line
outside
get up
zone
on
blocks
body.
and
I give the Rams props though. They had to do something.
They made the move.
You know.
They picked up. It's so much of a bigger commentary on the Patriots to me. You know, like
no, it's fair.
Bill Belichick just turned a first rounder, didn't get much from him really, not for a first round value, into 2 late round draft picks, and who's picked up just to add
No,
depth
that's
to
fair.
it.
I guess for me, it's more about the excitement of what the Rams are going to do than Bill Belichick missing.
Belichick is one coach that I know he don't care about cutting a first round draft pick, cutting a second round draft pick. You're never safe with Bill Belichick. I'll tell you that as a player.
Absolutely. You're too early, not a year too late. From the terrible tower waivers to America's team supporters to the dog pound and beyond. We got to ask the guys who they think has the best fan base in the NFL. That is an interesting question. Best fan base. The fellas answer that coming up. Teams coming back all the way healthy. Knock wood, Saquon, McCaffrey, Joe Burrow, OBJ, Dak, just to name a few. All are expected to be at full health this coming season. Thank goodness. Others just need a comeback. So, Harry, who will be the best NFL comeback story this season? And a girl loves a good comeback story.
Molly, I'm going to have to go with Panthers running back Christian McCaffrey. With the simple fact, he can do it rushing the football, he can do it catching the football.
Boy, good.
You look at him, all the years that he's been in the NFL except last year, Max, he's had over 100 targets in the pass game.
Yeah.
Think about that. He had 1,000 yards receiving, 1,000 yards rushing, not last year, the year before, 2019. When you have a guy like that you can line up against your safeties and even, I say, line up against your corners, line up against your linebackers, it can beat one-on-one coverage in the pass game, that's a damn good player in my eyes. So I think Christian McCaffrey is going to have a big year. Plus, they still lack a tight end in Carolina with Sam Darnold. I think they need to get him a tight end. But you have Robbie Anderson still. You have DJ Moore. But I think Christian McCaffrey is going to have a big year in Carolina.
Yeah, and listen, him and Saquon are the two just kind of different dudes at the position, right? You know who I think is going to have the biggest comeback story of the NFL this year? Ready for this? Call this pandering. The fans! The fans will be the biggest comeback story. The fans are coming back. You know, knock wood, everyone, the vaccinated and get the cards and all that kind of stuff. But what a difference that's going to make. Like, think about, we could take it for granted. It's kind of happened gradually, right? But first, there are no games. Then there are games with no fans, very few fans, and now we're getting back to like regular NFL football for the first time in what, 2 years?
Yeah.
You know, like, this is amazing. And in terms of players, look, there were a bunch of people on that
list. Wait, before you go to players, are you saying that because it's feel good with the fans, or you really think it's more of a competitive advantage?
No, I think it feels good. Yes, it's also an advantage when you're at home and your fans are there. No question.
Their environment is just so different.
Go to Arrowhead, see what I mean. There's some places that are really loud.
It's a tough place to play.
Yeah, I'm quite sure. No, I'm talking about the feel-good
story. I didn't know where you were going with that.
Fans coming back beats even Bosa coming back for the Niners or Odell for the Browns. Yeah, the fans coming back.
I like that one, Max. And shout out to the fans for making this game so lovely. This game is nothing without fans, and we've seen that last year. Did the NFL get through the season? Yes, they got through the season. But even players will tell you, with fans in the stands, it makes everything better. It gives them a little bit more MO, too.
Yeah, it's something without fans, but it's better with them.
Exactly.
Okay, so with that being said, let's go there. Which team has the best fans? What city has the best fan base in the National Football League? And we know NFL fans, they don't play, Harry.
Molly, I'm going to go with a 1A and a 1B. I'm sorry, I got to pick two. My 1A is going to be the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'll tell you, being able to play at Heinz Field and seeing those towels roll around, and fourth quarter comes and they're singing that song and everybody in the stadium is singing. It's more like a culture. Yeah. It's a culture up there. But my 1B, and I'm sorry, Atlanta fans, I'm going to have to do this, but it's the New Orleans Saints. That's a place that I love to play because their fans were so rude to you when you came in. And Max, I can't even repeat half the stuff that was said to me, but I tell you this.
They didn't say saintly things?
Every time I got an opportunity, I made sure I said some things back,
I'm
Max.
surprised. I would have thought Southern hospitality down there.
Well, you can check my mic'd up. I was mic'd up against the Saints one time.
Yeah, but it's Saints Falcons.
And I was able to give them a little quiet down.
That's Falcon right there talking about Saints fans and vice versa. That's
Atlanta, New Orleans, that's a rivalry right there, Molly.
Yeah. Like, if you talk about out of market too, Cowboys and then the Steelers, right? You're talking about national fan bases, but that's not what we're talking about here. I'm talking about, like, in that town, right? I would say, let me give you my 1C, my C, or my 3, 2, 1. Okay, I'll count it down for you real quick. I think the Browns come in third for me. No, they don't sell out all the time, but they have had nothing to root for in that town for decades. And that dog pound, once the team left, grassroots got the NFL to give them back a team called the Browns. They have to have an honorable mention. Then I'd say the Chiefs, because I just was mentioning, Arrow, that's the loudest place in the NFL, probably. I mean, you tell me, that's what you can see it. I would say number one for the local fans is the Green Bay Packers, which I think also is really America's team. That is middle of the country, owned by the fans, the team of Vince Lombardi, the frozen tundra, Facenda's voice on the frozen tundra. It feels like football, and in that neck of the woods, the Packers are everything. The Packers are every other franchise in the neighborhood times 1,000, right? Those Packers fans are, and yes, and they have a national following too, but in their hometowns, I would say Packers number one.
Molly, I got to go one more. Can I give one more, Molly?
Yeah, I got one.
The Buffalo Bills.
Bills Mafia?
To go to a Buffalo Bills game.
I think they might trump everybody.
A Monday night football game against the Patriots with my buddy Ed Sipple.
Yeah.
When we're outside tailgating, when it's about 20 degrees and I'm looking at everybody like, when are we going inside the stadium in the suite? And they're like, we're not going in for about 2 more hours. So I had to suck it up.
Putting in real work.
I had to
staying
suck it up.
hydrated.
No.
I was going to go, and maybe it's because I grew up in Connecticut, but when you grew up where I was, the New Haven area, more Giants and Jets fans, I think it's New England. I think it's just Boston fans, period.
Well,
Why are you looking at me? Have you seen how much the Boston fans have even hated on you?
If you would have said Celtics fans back in the day, that'd be one thing.
Patriots fans?
Patriots fans, that's a recent
Try
phenomenon.
growing up in Connecticut.
I'm just saying, Patriots is still recent, excuse me. It's been 20 years
Yeah.
building it. I get it. It's,
And I'm a couple years younger than you, but you know what I mean? So
it took them a long time to make the Patriots relevant compared to the Celtics,
I don't know.
Or the Red Sox. The Red Sox are bigger than the Patriots.
Are you kidding? Boston fans?
They were for a long time.
The Boston area, when you think about hockey, you think about the Bruins, the Red Sox, the Celtics,
all of it.
the
Boston
Patriots.
fans are crazy fans.
BC is a hockey factory,
Small
right?
nugget. Y'all probably don't know about me.
What's that?
I'm a Boston Bruins fan. Boston Bruins my number 1 team. The Predators, Nashville, my number 2. I got a Bergeron jersey in my
Brother,
car.
you're just a sports fan. I mean,
Watch it all, man.
Yeah.
And hockey is way better in person than it is on TV.
No doubt about it. No
All right.
doubt about it, yeah.
Do you want to talk about baseball? Because I can indulge you now. I know you only ask.
baseball.
In case everyone wants to know, every meeting, Max is like, "Oh, have you seen what the Yankees are doing?" Back in the day, we used to talk about baseball. All right.
11 in a row.
So Max's Yankees.
We used to lead around the horn back in the day every day with baseball.
Here we go. That's what I hear every day. A 9th inning scare from Harry's Braves. And Max, let me ask you this: what's your reaction to the Yankees winning 11 straight?
Well, they were left for dead, right? And then Cashman made a couple of deals to bring in some athletic left-handed power and some defense to go with the left-handed power. It's worked, and that pitching staff finally started getting straightened out. They have a guy, Luis Gil, he throws 100 miles an hour. First player ever, first 3 starts, 0 runs, 18 strikeouts, right? They got to send them back down to the minors. They have too much starting pitching right now. The Yankees can mess around and win the World Series this year.
That's what I was worried about with the Yankees. When I put them up against the Dodgers, the Giants, the Milwaukee Brewers, the Astros, I was worried about their pitching. But I know they have Garrett Cole. I was worried about what about after him?
Tyon and all those guys.
I'm worried about Chapman because Chapman almost gave that game away last night to the Braves. But you look at the Yankees, you look at their lineup, they have guys that can do it on a consistent basis hitting. Molly, when you have guys that can hit the game of baseball, but let me tell you one thing would be crazy, Max. If we get the Yankees versus the Dodgers in the World Series, but then you come around and you get the Brooklyn Nets versus the Lakers in the finals.
One thing you won't have to worry about in the NFL, it won't be Rams and Giants.
Now you're not going to be worried about your Bruins and Predators. Guys, we got some breaking news into First Take now. Adam Schefter just reporting this, that apparently the Jacksonville Jaguars have made their decision. Some of these quarterback battles coming to an end, and it is official that number 1 overall pick Trevor Lawrence will start Week 1 versus Houston. Max?
This is a little bit bizarre to me. I think for some of the same reasons that I'm arguing Justin Fields should sit, maybe you could also sit Trevor Lawrence. It's not like that line is great, the coaching's been great, and Gardner Minshew hasn't done any better than Trevor Lawrence. I don't know that he's been worse either from what I've seen. Actually, if I were the Jags, and I started out thinking, give the ball to Trevor Lawrence, it's going to be his team. Based on what I've seen in the preseason, maybe I would use who is going to be the backup, a veteran guy who can play a little bit as a tackling dummy, the same way I'd use Andy Dalton, instead of putting Trevor Lawrence in harm's way. Trevor Lawrence also does not look to me like he's processing the information very quickly yet. So I might wait on Trevor Lawrence. This may be a mistake.
I agree with that, Max. The simple fact that Trevor Lawrence, I don't agree with it, that Trevor Lawrence is processing the information very well, because you look at everything he's doing when he's trying to look downfield. Everything is moving too fast for him.
Yeah.
Right? Moving too fast. So he's not getting the ball to places that he needs to get it to at the right time. But as far as sitting him, you can't sit him. He's the number 1 overall pick in Jacksonville. Jacksonville, the city was waiting on this. The owner, Khan, was waiting on this. Urban Meyer was waiting on this.
Keep letting the fans decide.
But I tell you
Keep letting the fans in the locker room decide. You're going to get Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence hurt. Keep letting them decide.
I will be praying every Sunday morning for Trevor Lawrence, because what I've seen in preseason, it's not good.
All these rookies, I said this might be the best rookie quarterback class ever, right? There's only one rookie that if it were up to me, I would start out of all these guys at this point, and that's Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson, they got him protected on the left side.
Hold on, producers and mayor. You said of all these rookies, the only one you want to see start Week 1 is Zach Wilson?
That's right. I think the Jets did a very good job. Vera Tucker was a really good draft pick. They got back and they have the left side locked up at an elite level and young, right? They're not high expectations. Zach Wilson has shown he can use his legs, his arm. There's nothing better back there, and he looks ready to me. Everyone else I think I would wait on. Mac Jones, I'd wait. Trevor Lawrence, I'd wait. Justin Fields, Trey Lance, I'm waiting on all those guys.
How many rookies are you starting?
I want to see Trey Lance play. I want to see Justin Fields play. I want to see Zach Wilson play, Max.
So do I.
I want to see Trevor Lawrence play. I want to see them all play.
I'd like to see them play.
You're 5
all
for
good
5.
things to those who wait.
You're 5 for
4
5.
for 4, Molly.
Oh, yeah, 4 for 4. Okay, fair enough. Prime time, my guy, Deion Sanders will be